She was born into power, but surrounded by betrayal. A queen in a world ruled by men. She would charm the most powerful generals on earth, outmaneuver her rivals, and stake her throne on love, ambition, and war. But empires do not forgive weakness, and Rome would show no mercy. This is the story of Cleopatra, her rise, her reign, and her tragic fall. Cleopatra VII was born in 69 BCE into the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt, a royal family rotting from within. Her ancestors were not Egyptian, they were Greek, descendants of Alexander the Great's general, Ptolemy. For 300 years, they had ruled Egypt as foreign kings, clinging to power through tradition, wealth, and blood. In the Ptolemaic court, family was not safety, it was competition. Brothers killed brothers, sisters poisoned sisters, mothers betrayed daughters. Incest kept the bloodline pure, but it poisoned the dynasty from within. Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, was weak, corrupt, and despised. He bought his throne with Roman gold and watched his kingdom crumble. Cleopatra learned early. Power was never given. It was taken. Unlike her ancestors, Cleopatra was brilliant. She studied relentlessly. Philosophy, mathematics, astronomy. She mastered 9 languages, including Egyptian, a language no Ptolemaic ruler had bothered to learn in 3 centuries. She did not just want the throne, she wanted loyalty. She wanted Egypt to see her as their queen, not just another foreign ruler. But as she came of age, danger was already closing in. Her father died. The vultures gathered, and Cleopatra, just 18 years old, was thrust onto a throne surrounded by enemies. In 51 BCE, Cleopatra became Queen of Egypt, but she did not rule alone. Egyptian law demanded she share power with a male co-ruler. Her brother, Ptolemy XIII, he was 10 years old, a child king, controlled by advisors who hated Cleopatra. They whispered poison into the boy's ear. They told him Cleopatra was dangerous, ambitious, a threat. Within 3 years, the court turned against her. Her brother declared himself sole ruler. Cleopatra was forced to flee, hunted, exiled, stripped of her crown. She gathered what forces she could, a small, desperate army, and camped on Egypt's border, preparing for civil war. But then, fate intervened. Rome arrived. Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful general, landed in Alexandria. He was chasing his rival Pompey across the Mediterranean. But Pompey was already dead, murdered by Ptolemy's advisors, who thought it would win Caesar's favor. It did not. Caesar was furious. He took control of the palace, and Cleopatra saw her opening. The legend says she had herself smuggled into Caesar's chambers, wrapped in a carpet, rolled up like cargo, delivered to the most powerful man in the world. It worked. When the carpet unrolled, Cleopatra emerged, not as a beggar, but as a queen. She spoke to Caesar in flawless Latin. She debated philosophy, politics, war. She did not seduce him with beauty alone. She dazzled him with intellect. Caesar was captivated. He backed her claim to the throne. He crushed her brother's forces. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile, fleeing Caesar's legions. Cleopatra was restored, her enemies eliminated, her throne secured. But this time, she ruled not just by birthright, but by alliance with Rome itself. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra ruled unchallenged. She married another brother, Ptolemy XIV, as tradition demanded. But it was a formality. Cleopatra held the true power, and she gave Caesar something Rome had never given him, a son, Caesarion. Little Caesar, a living symbol of their alliance, a future king of Egypt, and perhaps one day Rome itself. But Rome was unstable. The Senate feared Caesar's power. Senators whispered of tyranny, of kingship, of the fall of the Republic. And in 44 BCE, on the Ides of March, Julius Caesar was assassinated, stabbed 23 times by men he called friends. Cleopatra was in Rome when it happened. She fled back to Egypt, alone, vulnerable, her protector dead. Once again, she stood at the edge of ruin. But Cleopatra did not break. She waited. She watched. And when Rome tore itself apart in civil war, she chose her next ally carefully, Mark Antony, Caesar's lieutenant, a general beloved by soldiers, a man of passion, ambition, and reckless courage. Their meeting was legendary. Cleopatra sailed to meet him on a golden barge, dressed as the goddess Isis, surrounded by perfumed sails and music. Antony was entranced. Their bond was immediate, political, personal, dangerous. Together, they ruled the Eastern Mediterranean as partners. Cleopatra styled herself as a living goddess, Isis incarnate. She gave Antony 3 children. She secured Egypt's borders, expanded its wealth, and commanded respect across the known world. For a time, it seemed unstoppable. Egypt prospered. Rome watched, suspicious, enraged, and planning its revenge. In Rome, Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, grew more powerful by the day. He was young, calculating, and ruthless, and he saw Cleopatra as a threat, not just to his power, but to Rome itself. Octavian waged a propaganda war. He called Cleopatra a seductress, a foreign witch, a corrupter of Roman virtue. He claimed she had bewitched Mark Antony, turned him against Rome, made him forget his duty, his honor, his country. The Senate declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra alone. They painted her as the enemy of civilization. In 31 BCE, the fleets of Cleopatra and Antony met the forces of Octavian at the Battle of Actium, off the coast of Greece. It was a naval battle for the fate of the Mediterranean. But the battle was a disaster. Cleopatra's fleet broke away. Some say to preserve her treasury, others say in panic. Antony followed her. The remaining ships were slaughtered. Rome had won. Cleopatra and Antony fled to Alexandria, trapped, surrounded, their armies deserting them one by one. Octavian's legions closed in. There was no escape. Power was slipping through their fingers like sand. As Octavian's forces surrounded Alexandria, Mark Antony received devastating news. A false rumor that Cleopatra was dead. Believing he had lost everything, Antony fell on his sword. But he did not die immediately. He was carried, bleeding, dying, to Cleopatra's tomb, where she had barricaded herself with her treasures. In his final moments, Antony died in Cleopatra's arms, the great general, the last hope of their alliance. Gone. Cleopatra was now alone, captured by Octavian's soldiers, brought before the man who would become Rome's first emperor. He offered her life, but only as a prisoner, a trophy, to be paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, humiliated before jeering crowds, a symbol of Egypt's defeat. Cleopatra refused. She had ruled as a queen. She would die as one. The legend says she chose her own end, an asp, a venomous snake, smuggled into her chambers in a basket of figs. She pressed it to her skin. The poison worked quickly. On August 12th, 30 BCE, Cleopatra died. She was 39 years old, the last queen of Egypt, the last pharaoh. Her son, Caesarion, the last hope of her dynasty, was hunted down and executed. Her kingdom was erased. Egypt became a Roman province. An empire that had lasted 3,000 years fell with her. Rome rewrote her story. For centuries, they called her a temptress, a manipulator, a villain who seduced great men and brought them to ruin. Poets mocked her, historians condemned her. The Senate erased her name from monuments. But Cleopatra was more than myth, more than the stories Rome told. She was a strategist who restored her kingdom from exile. Twice. She was a scholar who mastered 9 languages. She was a diplomat who navigated the most dangerous political waters in history. She was a mother who fought to secure her children's future. She was a ruler who commanded fleets, armies, and nations. And she was the last independent ruler of Egypt, a queen who defied Rome itself when no one else dared. Cleopatra did not seduce empires. She negotiated with them. She played the only game available to her in a world ruled by men and conquest. And when the game was lost, she chose her own end, on her own terms. That is not seduction. That is sovereignty. Power attracts empires. Love can destroy them. Cleopatra, the 7th Philopator, 69 BCE to 30 BCE, last pharaoh of Egypt. But Cleopatra's legendary reign was only possible because of one man, a Roman general whose ambition would change the course of history. His name was Julius Caesar, and their alliance would shake the ancient world. But who was this man before he met the Queen of Egypt? How did a young nobleman from a modest family become Rome's most powerful and most dangerous leader? That story begins in Rome, 30 years earlier, when a young Julius Caesar stood before a dictator who wanted him dead. Julius Caesar, the general who conquered Rome, coming next.